We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So where's our flag? It's behind us. Okay.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll just go down the line here and just so everybody can introduce themselves in case anybody doesn't know who we are. All right, let's start down here.
Delegate Josh Donker, representing District 42C.
Delegate April Rose, representing District 5 right here in Carroll County, Westminster.
Chris Tomlinson, representing District 5. That includes most of Carroll County, about 75%, and then we also have a little piece of Frederick County as well.
Senator Justin Reedy, representing District 5, and speaking for Senator West, who represents District 42. He will be here shortly, but he said to get started with that, and he was coming from Baltimore, and the traffic was pretty rough, so he'll be here as well.
Delegate Christopher Eric Boucher, representing the best district of all, Maryland, District 5.
Okay, all right, and so the first thing we need to do is have an election for our little delegation of the 6 of us, and should we hold off maybe on that until Chris West gets here? Or?
I move that we hold that till a little bit later.
Yeah, let's wait for him, especially, since it's only 5 out of 6 of us.
We can allow the current chair to continue for until we have the next
Yes, another hour. All right, so we're just going to move on to our legislative hearing, which is why everybody is here. We've got a couple, really actually only a few bills this year that Carroll County's government, that the commissioners, that they are bringing forth. And so I will let, I think we've got Pam here to speak on those bills. So you're first.
Sorry, I'm short here. Hello. Good evening. I'm Pam Meister, the Legislative Liaison, and I am going to touch on 2 of the bills, and then Tim's going to come up and talk about another late addition. One is the Carroll County Public Facilities Bond that you're familiar with from year to year. To be determined the amount, but we use these funds to fund construction, improvement, and development public facilities. You have a memo for each of these 2 bills in front of you that have more details, but it just gives you kind of the background on how generally these funds are used, as you know. And then the second is a bill that we've introduced 2 prior sessions, so hopefully this will be 3rd time's a charm, which will ensure that businesses in Carroll County pay their personal property taxes before receiving commercial permits or licenses. The Comptroller's Office did some numbers for us last year and estimated about $126,000 of delinquent personal property taxes that were not enforced in fiscal year 23, just to give you an idea of the scope of what this could bring in. And essentially, there were some little concerns that were raised last year as questions, but we were able to answer them around making sure that there were no logistical issues for people coming in who had paid their taxes, that there was a process in place for the Comptroller's Office so that if you did then pay your taxes later, this would then be waived. So hopefully this year we'll be able to move this forward. And if you have any specific questions on this matter, Jenny Hobbs is also here this evening and can answer those.
Before you go to the next one, we want to see if anyone wants to give a comment.
Yeah, does anybody have any comments or anything they want to say on that from the public here? It's exciting stuff. We're talking county taxes. I can't believe nobody wants to talk on this. Okay.
Complaining?
No, I'm not complaining at all. You can move forward then.
Okay, and then Tim's going to speak to 1 late edition.
Okay. I'm just not sure I'm voting for this.
And while Mr. Burke is coming up, we'll mention as we move forward tonight, we're doing it formally, informally, but we would love for folks to state their first and last name when they testify, and if they're representing an organization, the name of the organization. But if you're not, you're speaking for yourself, that's fine. We are keeping detailed notes. We did not do a sign-in beforehand, so when we get to more of the open comment time, we want to be sure we get your name so we know who gave the input for what. So go ahead.
Good evening. Tim Burke, the county attorney. I'm here representing the county commissioners. The commissioners respectively would like you to resubmit House Bill number 1426 from last year. that concerns the roles and responsibilities of the Carroll County Commissioners sitting as the Board of Health. They appreciated the language as submitted last year, but would like an opportunity to add some additional language clarifying their rights to hear appeals in certain cases and procedures for the appeals and complaint process. So I would like to contact one of your offices and, I'm sorry? Contact Senator Reedy's office. Okay. I would like to contact Senator Reedy's office, get a Word copy of this, and to send you some proposed language, if that's all right. But again, it's only the same bill, only modifying the appeals process and the involvement of the Carroll County Commissioners as Board of Health in an appeals process.
Tim, I have two questions. First, can you repeat the bill number from last year? We can look it up, but just for the record.
I'm sorry, House Bill 1426.
Okay, that's right. And then secondly, because we try to have, this one comes late and we didn't put it out on the agenda, which is okay. There's a public hearing process after this in Annapolis, but just for the sake of people who are listening or here, it's not a radical change. The county commissioners already sit as the Board of Health, but this would be clarifying that and also clarifying that they can hear appeals in some cases. Is that a fair way to summarize the bill?
Yes, there's been many questions raised about what can the Board of Health, Carroll County Commissioners as the Board of Health do. This would help clarify that and their relationship to the Carroll County Health Officer and the Health Department.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have a quick comment. For both this bill and the prior bill, can we make sure we get a letter that has all of those all the commissioners that are supporting it are on record with that?
Sure.
Thank you.
And the vote count, like, how many people voted for it and who voted for it. This in particular, I think is extremely important to clarify because I know there's been a lot of back and forth about whether or not the commissioners do sit as the Board of Health, which they do, in my opinion. And I think that we need to make sure we have this, every detail really locked down. So I'll look forward to the ongoing discussion about it.
Yes.
Something else that would be helpful as the person who introduced it on the House side, which was a very memorable experience, mostly because most of the folks in the room and the 200 people who sent emails to the chair of the committee who also didn't understand that our commissioners already have served as the Board of Health since like 1886 or something like that.
Grover Cleveland.
Yeah, it was Grover Cleveland's second term, as I recall saying in the hearing. If you could help with, because I mean, the biggest thing is just we're going to have to do some work on, behind the scenes explaining to the folks in charge down there that, I don't know who I'm looking at, Tim, I'm just going to go back and forth. We need to do some, when I say we, whether it's me or you, we need to do some work explaining to the folks down there that the commissioners already are the Board of Health, because there was mass confusion on that. And it basically blew the entire bill up. And that's on me for not, I didn't think that was going to be the point of the bill or the yeah. So that's what we need. We need to first tell them they already are the board and this is what they currently do as the board, and make it clear this is what we're trying to change, because it was a lot of trouble with that one last year.
In most cases, we're trying to spell out in law what they already can do, really. It's just a question of clarifying a couple things, so.
I remember.
I'll make sure we sit down
The folder.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to talk about that one or have any comments? All right. Okay, so that wraps up the bills coming that the county commissioners would like to see introduced. Then we're going to move on to some legislation that our Carroll County Fraternity Police, our FOP, that they would like to bring forth. And so we'll hear from them next.
Good morning, delegates and Senator. My name is Ash Owens. I'm the president of the Carroll County Fraternal Order of Police. We also represent the correctional deputies that work at the detention center here in Carroll County. They're also part of our membership. Along with me is Mr. Matt Engler. He's an attorney with Berman, Sobin, Gross, and a friend to the FOP, not only our lodge, but across the state. And he has an expertise in what I'm going to talk about, so he can answer some questions, and he'll speak after I speak with some finer details. But thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of the dedicated men and women serving as correctional officers in Carroll County. And I'd like to urge you to support their inclusion in the presumptive occupational disease law. That's currently part of law under the Labor and Employment Code for the state. These officers perform a vital public service day in and day out. They work in a challenging, hazardous environment, safeguarding the public, maintaining order, and confronting risks most of us never even consider. Yet, in many cases, when illness strikes, the connection between their service and its toll on their health remains unrecognized under the current law, and we believe that that should change.
This one in the packet, they want to work.
Why their inclusion is justified. First, elevated risks are inherent with the job. Correctional officers are routinely exposed to high-stress situations, physical violence, infectious disease, environmental hazards, interrupted sleep, shift work, and psychological trauma and strain. These stressors are not occupational. They're not occasional. They are part of the job. Existing law shows a precedent of recognition. Maryland's current occupational disease presumption law under the Maryland Labor and Employment Code 9503 grants a presumption of compensability for certain public safety employees. Firefighters and police are included. For things like heart disease, hypertension, lung disease, certain cancers caused by exposures. Meanwhile, legal commentary notes that correctional officers outside of a few counties who have sought this legislation and gotten their correctional officers added to the code. Outside of that, not every county and their correctional officers in that county enjoy the full presumption of benefits, despite facing similar occupational hazards. As we all know, the hazards of the job do not change when you cross county lines. So we believe that it's about fairness. Same risk deserves equal protection. In counties such as Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and Anne Arundel County, just to name a few, correctional officers are explicitly included in the presumption for heart disease and hypertension. Yet in Carroll County, correctional officers may not enjoy the same automatic benefit. In fact, they don't, despite performing substantially the same function under the same circumstances in a lot of cases. The disparity, we believe, is unjust. Without the presumption, an officer who develops hypertension, heart disease, other occupational related illnesses must spend time, energy, and resources proving the disease was caused by the job. That places an undue burden on them, delays access to benefits when they are sick or disabled. And the presumption helps streamline the process and acknowledges the unique hazards of the job. By offering fair protections, Carroll County can help retain experienced officers, reduce turnover, show that we value those who protect us in the detention center. This not only helps individual officers in the detention center, but strengthens public safety in the entire community. It's understandable to want safeguards against abuse, of course, and we recognize that. But the presumption is not a free pass. It still requires a diagnosis, disability or death, and the applicable employment conditions that are established. The presumption simply shifts the burden of proof, or the burden itself slightly, because occupational hazard is so well established for these professions. Some may ask, where do we draw the line? And my response would be, we draw it where the occupational risk is clearly beyond typical job hazards and is well documented, and it is well documented. Correctional officers' duties meet that threshold for sure. If we have recognized it for police and firefighters, fairness demands that we extend it to correctional officers whose risks are comparable. In the county, the corrections officers that work at the detention center are included in the public pension and disability and things of that nature for our county, along with our firefighters and EMTs and police. Therefore, I respectfully ask you to draft appropriate state legislation language that would extend the presumption of occupational disease to correctional officers in Carroll County under equivalent standards as other public safety employees. And to publicly support this change so that the courageous individuals working in our jail know that their county stands with them, not just when they are fit for duty, but if and when their health pays for the price for their service. In closing, let me say this. Our correctional officers stand watch so that we can sleep more soundly. They accept risks many do not see. It is only right that we recognize those risks, acknowledging that when disease or disability comes, the presumption that it is work-related should be there. By extending the occupational disease presumption to correctional officers in Carroll County, we say that your service matters, your health matters, and your community cares. Thank you for your time and your consideration and your dedication to ensuring fairness and just your dedication in general to public safety in our county. We recognize it and we appreciate it. Those outstanding folks that work across the street over here have a very difficult job. They're often not seen because they work behind those walls. They're not out in the public. They're not able to interact with all of us on a daily basis with the job that they do, which is much different from firefighters, EMTs, and police officers. But we may not see them, but let's not forget them. I'm going to turn it over to Matt Engler. He's going to have a few words. He passed out a flyer or a packet of information for you all to look at. And then once Matt's done speaking, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Good evening, delegates and senators. Thank you very much for taking the time. Again, I'm Matt Engler. I'm a partner at the law firm Berman Soben Gross. We have 35 years experience representing injured workers and public safety professionals across the state. So what I'm going to jump off to is the Labor and Employment Article, Section 9503. That's in that packet. It's about the third or fourth page in. That is the specific statutory section that applies to the presumptive occupational diseases. And this law is actually rather old. It's been on the books since the 1980s. When it originally passed, it applied just to firefighters and police officers and volunteer firefighters, because the medical literature was coming out that the stresses associated with their profession, shift work sleep disorder, irregular sleep patterns, threats, constant cortisol and adrenaline being pumped into their blood vessels, they are a lot more likely, in some studies, 33% more likely than the general American public to develop hypertension and heart disease or to die from those conditions. And that's all the more alarming when you consider that these professions have very high physical standards. So generally these are individuals that have to be in good shape and have to remain in good shape and have to go through annual testing. And despite that, they are still more likely than the general American public to develop these conditions. So the General Assembly back then passed this law for firefighters and police officers. One of the interesting things about this then is as the years progress, and if you take a look at that specific subsection B, you'll notice some language has been added over the years. It started off with paid police officers from the state, airport authority, county, municipal corporations. And then as you get farther down, you'll start to notice Deputy Sheriff of Montgomery County, Deputy Sheriff of Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County Correctional Officer, Prince George's County Correctional Officer. And these jurisdictions, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Anne Arundel, started to pick up on, hey, our correctional officers are subjected to the same stresses and risk factors that our police officers and firefighters are. We're going to add them to this protection. And so piecemeal, these different counties added their correctional officers. And so now we have in the state of Maryland a very odd situation where a correctional officer in Montgomery County doing the exact same thing that a Carroll County correctional officer across the street is doing doesn't have the same protection for doing the exact same job under this Workers' Compensation Act. And it's just, I mean, you all know the legislative process better than anyone in this room. And so you know that, you know, because these affect the fiscal policy of an individual county, it's the county delegation has to come forward and bring that to Annapolis. So those county delegations did it over time. I will add, because there's always the question of budget, and I'll just point this out. I don't want to go belabor this point too much because I know there will be more on this later if this gets into the legislative process. But one of the reasons Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and these Anne Arundel counties started doing this, and these other counties are following suit slowly, is when a county becomes self-insured, they want to have more savings or control over the medical payment for the medical conditions. So Montgomery County, for example, rather than having those correctional officers have to pay for go through personal health insurance to have their heart disease or hypertension medications, treatments covered, under the Maryland Workers' Compensation Act, there's a fee guide which helps control the pricing for those and keeps everything controlled by the fee guide. So the individual county is able to control better excessive pricing in medications, prescriptions. I'll leave it at that. I could bore you to tears with that, but I know I'm conscious of other people in the room. So that is a consideration to be made. Not only is it a fundamental fairness that all correction officers in Carroll County receive the same protections for the same risk factors that their colleagues are doing literally across the county line, but it's also a very smart move on the county level. I also added in there labor and employment article section 628, because that's tied into this. There's something called the public safety rate, and if you look at page 2, you'll literally see the exact same thing in that section that you saw in the 9503, where at one time firefighters and police officers and volunteer firefighters are given what's called a public safety rate of compensation that is higher than a regular injured worker in Maryland gets. And you'll notice in that list on page 2, over the decades and years since that was added, it was originally just A1, A2, A3, firefighters and police officers. You'll notice, again, different counties came in and added their deputy sheriffs, added their correctional officers. So we're also asking that that be amended. That's a separate section, separate bill, but that we also ask that that be amended again to make sure that the Carroll County correction officers are given the same safety net. And for the impact of that, I just did that chart on page 1 to explain that it only applies to what's classified as minor injuries. It doesn't apply to any other injuries. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
If I may, has there been any studies that showed the potential parity of heart disease between correctional and law enforcement, or is one higher than the other? Because that would ultimately affect the premium paid if it's higher in correctional officers, which demands they need the service. Has there been study on that?
I'm not aware of any studies on that. The studies that I usually deal with when I'm doing depositions of cardiologists and stuff, usually they're general studies on the individual risk factors inherent in these individual professions. There are studies that talk about correctional officers as a cohort, but comparing them specifically to police officers, I'm not aware of any studies. Usually what they do is they look at, okay, people in occupations with shift work sleep disorder are more likely to get this. People exposed to loud noises consistently are more likely to get this. And so they look at where are these professions with these risk factors, and the majority of these risk factors are in these specific professions. But to answer your question, no, I'm not aware of any. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you for your openness about that.
Can I ask a quick question? So, being on the Finance Committee in the Senate, we get all the workers' comp stuff, and there's usually a day or two they call Workers' Comp Day where we get like 10 bills about workers' comp. So I'm an expert. No, I'm kidding. I'm not. It's actually, it's very complex, but I've learned a lot about it. But
Speaking my language.
I've learned a little about it, not a lot. I've learned a little. So the fee schedule thing, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. So if we do want to hear from the county on this, which I think there's going to be some interaction. It is a state legislative decision, but we'd like to, we want the county to be supportive as well. So that fee schedule, then that's some protection. This isn't a lot. This isn't like every corrections officer is going to be having this. In fact, we hope they don't, but some would. But there's a fee schedule that protects the cost. Because there's always a lot of debate in the General Assembly about over the fee schedule too. So yeah.
Right. So you can imagine Montgomery County, for example, when they added their correction officers about a little more than 20 years ago to this, it wasn't completely altruistic, right? It was, well, this is a smart move. Let's make sure our correction officers have this protection like our police officers and firefighters. Prince George's County just did it. We should do it.
Right.
But also in the, talking about the fee guide. So when a county goes self-insured like Carroll County is, right, where you have a third-party administrator that we won't go into this too much, but that manages the management of medical expenses for workers' comp claim for the county. Everything from a utility worker that breaks his knee to a deputy sheriff who has a heart attack. All the medical bills that are processed under the Workers' Compensation Act or through that claim have to go through a medical fee guide that's put out by the Maryland Workers' Compensation Commission. They have annual meetings, et cetera, et cetera. That fee guide, if that treatment's done in Maryland, that medical provider cannot charge or accept more than whatever that fee guide lays out, which is less typically. Now, it has to do with CPT code, and this is all public on the Workers' Compensation website. So that bill is usually going to be reduced to the level of the fee guide, which is usually less than what a primary health insurance would pay.
Okay.
Or, and sometimes it's not, but it depends on that particular CPT code. But the other thing that happens where it's that the third-party administrator for that county can also negotiate directly with the medical provider or the pharmacy in the case of hypertension or heart disease on the price of those medications. Whereas if you're dealing with a national health insurance company, you don't have that bargaining
Yeah, you're kind of at
power.
their mercy, right? Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's a variety of things that the Maryland Workers' Compensation Act provides to lubricate that process, as it were.
Thank you very much.
If we introduce this bill, I'm going to want you sitting right next to me to repeat all of that just exactly how you said it. When you and I talked before, I was just, I quite frankly, I didn't know that we'd already had a bill drafted. Obviously, I mean, we can change things, but I know when we talked previously, you had talked about how through case law, I think it was that sheriff's deputies, because it doesn't specifically say already in the law sheriff deputies, but you said that case law is kind of settled that they're already considered in there. I think when we talked last time, we were kind of on the fence on whether we wanted to make that crystal clear in the law or just leave that alone.
Well, Ash and I were kind of just referencing that. You'll notice that some other counties do deputy sheriff. So right now, a deputy sheriff working in the sheriff's office, not the correctional deputies in the jail, but a correctional deputy that's a law enforcement officer, they are covered under the section as paid police officers employed by a county. That's what if ever Carroll County had a police department and sheriff's deputies like in, let's say, Montgomery County are now just courthouse deputies or jail deputies, they would no longer have that case law saying they do it. So if ever that eventually added, but right now they are covered as paid police officers.
Because they're the primary.
Employed by the county.
Yeah, it's the primary law enforcement. Okay.
Okay, so it's,
if there's ever that possibility down the road, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea just to make sure, if you change the statute, then you're good.
gotcha. Okay, I mean, that's something we can talk about, but I remembered, I was looking through what we had drafted, and I wasn't sure if that was.
That's good.
Okay.
And just to piggyback off of that, we were actually just talking about that back there before we started, and we looked at one of our blue cards that we get from the Maryland Police Corrections Training Commission, and it says on the back of our card that we're certified as police officers, even though we work for the sheriff's office and we're sheriff's deputies by title. Yes, sheriff's deputies, but by the way that they categorize us for the state, we're police officers by the commission. So that clarifies it.
Glad you clarified that.
Cool. All right. Anything else from you guys? Thank you. All right. Thanks. So a couple things, just to, so everybody can know. We're not going to vote. So for the 3 county bills that were offered, and then what the FOP just brought forth, we will vote on whether we're going to actually introduce that legislation come January. We'll have a meeting, a virtual meeting that will be broadcasted publicly, and so the reason we do that is so we give the public time to actually kind of sit on it and think about it and ask questions and give their feedback. So we will not be voting on whether we move forward with any of this legislation today, and that's how it's always been. And then does anybody have any comments or anything they want to say about that specific piece of legislation that the FOP just proposed? Okay. And then we're going to move on to legislative bond initiatives.
Okay. Yeah. Delegate Thomason asked me to reference or to just quickly say what LBIs are in case people don't know. Some of you that are here to present ideas for an LBI probably already know. The General Assembly every year, and actually Delegate Stomp goes on the Appropriations Committee in the House. I'm sure he could explain it better than I will and probably more concisely, but here we go. There is a certain amount of money in the state's capital budget. We hear a lot about operating budget and operating budget deficits. There's the capital budget is a separate part of the budget that is for capital expenditures. So it's borrowed off state bonding. There's other pots of money. There's other sources for the money, but it's a capital budget for infrastructure, for building, for capital expenditures. The General Assembly every year has, the money varies, but generally each chamber, the House of Delegates and the Senate, have $15 million each that they have allotted to what are called now legislative bond initiatives. They are for specific targeted community projects, nonprofits. The key is capital. Has been a capital expenditure. And up until recently, there was always a matching fund requirement. That requirement is not really in place anymore, but if you have matching funds, it does get you a little bit higher up the line for consideration for an LBI. With 47 state senators and 141 state delegates, $15 million cut up goes pretty quick. And candidly, when one party is in the majority, their members are going to get more of a share of that than the minority party members. We've actually had a lot of success the last several years in really bringing back capital LBIs and other there's other ways to get into the capital budget too, not to get in the weeds. There's other ways to do that, and I've talked to some of you in this room about that. But the LBI part of it is really for targeted needs to help small community organizations, nonprofits. It cannot be for a business. It has to be for a nonprofit or a governmental entity. But we've also said to people, towns that come to us with a need for millions and millions of dollars, we're like, we don't really want to do an LBI for that. An LBI generally is going to be $100,000 or $200,000 or $50,000. It's not going to be, so I don't want to give somebody that needs $10 million 75 grand. I'd rather give 75 grand if we can to a group that'll meet half their need or all their need. So we don't always know exactly how much we're going to be able to get, and we don't always know how much control we'll have over the process. Other than that, it's a very clear process. So,
and usually they tell us tell us how much they'll give us, and they say you have 1 hour to figure that out, how you want to split it up. So it's a really great process.
And this year they might say you get it in some, particularly unfortunately I think in the House they'll say if you're willing to vote for these 3 or 4 things that you really don't want to vote for, we'll give you an extra $100,000. So they don't ever put that in writing, but that's kind of how it works. The Senate has tended to be a little more gentlemanly, that they make sure every senator gets something to bring home. So Senator West and I have collaborated a lot a how to maximize our ability to get resources. But again, could be limited, and it's going to be a tough budget year. So with all that said, back over to you.
Yeah, so I'm sure everybody understands now how that works. Just to, before I forget, when we get to the public comment section, nobody has a buzzer here. We're not going to, drag you out if you go over, but just try to maybe stay around 2 minutes, ideally, just because, we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk. Like I said, we're not going to, literally, take the mic from you, but just try to keep it around 2. But now we're going to move on to, we've got a couple organizations that have already expressed an interest in trying to pursue an LBI. And so we're going to bring up first, we have the current fire chief of the Manchester Volunteer Fire Company.
Good evening, Andrew Franklin, I'm the fire chief of Manchester Volunteer.
Take it away.
You guys got an outline here. I'm going to sum it up. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So basically, we have 3 capital projects. We are looking for a brand new fire engine, which is a lot on Capitol Hill right now with the cost and the make time. I don't know if you guys see that's a big thing right now. So a brand new fire truck right now is running about $1.6 million. Back in 2002, when we bought our last one, they were $371,000. Wow. That's the price increase. It's outrageous, and it's a 4-year build time for these. The second project's gonna be a rescue squad. There's 5 of them in Carroll County. They're heavy rescue. Basically, it's a big toolbox of wheels. If you're trapped in a car, it carries all the jaws of life, all the tools you need for trench rescue, grain bin rescue, shoring, whatever it needs. It's basically just a giant toolbox. That right now is going for $2 million for a brand new one. That's a 4-year build time. And back in 1998, we purchased our last one. It was right around $400,000. So this shows you how much the price is going up. And yes. And then thirdly, We would like to do a station renovation now. DFM's in place. We have 4 career people around the clock at Manchester. We have an engineer who drives the fire apparatus. We have EMS supervisor, and we have 2 people in the medic unit, paramedic unit providing ALS care to our area. And we just need to update the living quarters. I just learned this today. I thought it was pretty interesting. The main part of the firehouse was built in 1927, and then the addition was built in 1984. So we are long overdue for some ADA compliance, some electrical upgrades, some fire suppression upgrades, and this make it a little more homely now that we have 4 people. We are one of the strongest volunteers in Carroll County. We still have a good turnout when the siren blows. I'm not bragging, but Monday morning we had a house fire. We had 16 volunteers show up 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll take it. But it's the economy we live in. A lot of us are in shift work. A lot of us are career firefighters already. So the shift work and kids being in school during the day is a big help for our community to serve the community's needs. So I'm just asking for a little bit of help where I can to get this. Our carnival was down this year pretty good, almost 20%. And the society we live in, you either bring your kids to the carnival to feed them dinner or ride rides. You can't do both in this society. And it's a sad part, but it's true. We're hurting. Fundraising's down. We can see it everybody. It's nothing we can really do about it. So, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you connected with, and Craig, can you get information? Have you connected with the Hampstead Fire Department on any of the grants they've gotten that are part of like GoCap and some of the things that are not this?
We have talked, but not really in detail.
Okay, they were able to piece together like some $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 pieces from different carve-outs in the budget that are designed. I think one of the things they got was for a new fire engine at one point. So they hear me say this every year, but one of the things we're always conscious of is if there's budget mechanisms for applications for places that can be applied for in pre-carved out operating budget, we want to make sure we take advantage of that. So Craig will get your information, and
Yes, sir.
let's just circle up on all 3 of those.
Basically, every day technology changes in the fire services as well as the police department for our safety. So every day something new's rolling out to help us. So
And it's just with the public safety pieces where the most compared to the other grants or LBIs that are being requested, it's where we have some state carved out initiatives. Let's make sure we're finding those funds too if they're there. Yeah. He'll get your info.
There are some spots in the budget that there may already be some opportunities. So that's great. And then if we're able to if we're able to get some funding, it might be that you meet a little bit of that renovation need. Generally, like I said, we're not going to be able to get a $500,000 bond bill probably, but but we will definitely work on it.
something's better than nothing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If I may, sometimes we have to prioritize or ask what the priority is for these items. Is it numerically listed in priority 1, 2, and 3, or is there a priority rating you have?
That's prioritized for you, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. Does anybody from the public have anything to comment on regarding that request?
State your name for the record, please.
Santini. Thank you. And I'm Italian, so I can talk loud. This is, to me, such an important thing for the fire department to function because we all need them. How long does something like that take to get the money? Is it a grant process like so many other things are? And how long does something like this take for them to get their money or the funds that they're requesting?
It depends. If it's a grant process, it could be once they're approved, it could come right away. If it's an LBI, if a legislative bond initiative carves out money, it's available in the next fiscal year, so July of the following summer, and then they're available for 5 years, so they can wait up to 5 years to take the funds. So he had mentioned that a couple of these are 4-year out projects that'll be available for them to take the funds at that time.
It's actually a good question. The LBIs are available. So an organization, generally we love to know that the money is going to be spent pretty much right away, but if an organization ends up needing to hold it for a year or two, they can do that. And so that's when you get an LBI. So a lot of the grant money, you got to get it and spend it. So,
There's a
do
question.
you most have any?
There's a question over here.
Can you come on up?
It's Kira.
Hi, my My name is Diana Bergman. I live now here in Carroll County. The question that I had was for clarification, because I understood that we couldn't obtain a bond for like fire trucks and ambulance in Maryland. They could do bonds for brick and mortar buildings, but
It's hyper specific. We may not be able to do one with the fire engine, which is why we have the grant programs that are set up for GoCap. We'll have to look into like this. We'll have to look in some of the state law specifics on the LBIs, because it's since I've been here where this is the first fire engine we've had a request for.
and it's important for the fire engines to be replaced, because like he said, it's like 4 years of a wait time just to build the fire engine, and just the mileage that it takes. And they're out here protecting our whole community as a whole, responding to fires and just helping people out. So it should be prioritized, in my opinion.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next we have some folks from Westminster Elementary School.
Hi, my name is Stacy Tracy, and I'm the PTO president of Westminster Elementary, and I'm here with our school's principal, Miss Stephanie Dale, and our PTO treasurer. I'm here today on behalf of our staff, students, parents, and families to request $35,000 in a bond to fund a new school sign for Westminster Elementary. Westminster Elementary is a Title I school serving roughly 550 students. Our current outdoor sign is in a state of disrepair. It's outdated, difficult to read, and several components are breaking, making it unusable. Repairs are no longer cost effective, and the sign can't meet the communication needs of our school community. Many elementary schools in Carroll County already have replaced their aging signs with updated electric message boards, and these upgrades have significantly improved communications. Additionally, the state has recognized the importance of these types of school communication tools. Last year's bond initiative funded new electronic school signs for Fullerton Elementary and Samuel Ogle Middle School. These projects set a strong precedent and demonstrate statewide support for modern, accessible school signs. For Westminster Elementary, this need is also an issue of equity and access. As a Title I school, many of our families rely on clear, visible communication. Not all parents have reliable internet access or the flexibility to check their email throughout the day. A modern electronic sign ensures equitable communication for every family, providing timely reminders about our events, Title I resources, safety messages, and school updates regarding personal barriers, regardless of personal barriers. For our school community, a new school sign is a critical tool that will strengthen family engagement and keep our families informed and connected. We also plan to keep the existing structure that the sign is holding up on to help cut costs and preserve the history of our school. I have been working with a contractor to price it out, and I have a picture here of like what the sign would look like on top of the existing structure that we have that I can give you guys. Thank you for your time and consideration, and we respectfully ask for you to support this initiative.
I had a question. And I'm sorry if I missed it. It's the current sign that you have, is it also digital or
No.
It's not. Okay. Sorry.
It may be the original sign to the school.
That it is. I've driven by it many times.
And it was actually the facilities director that asked us to come here today because they're not sure how many more times they can open it up to put the words in. I'm just being honest, we're like at that point, and you can't really read it because it's so disgusting.
Cloudy.
Yeah. Yeah.
The I want to say, only because it's right by my parents' house, I want to say Spring Garden, they got a newer sign, I don't know, in the last 5 years or so. And then Manchester Valley High School, that was a big thing for them for a while. I think they, and Miss Herbert's somewhere in this room, and she knows exactly what everything about what went down with that. But I think they raised, I think that they were raising money for a long time to try to do that. I don't know how Spring Garden went about doing it. Did we ever Did we ever get money for that? I don't.
I don't think Spring Garden, no, but.
Yeah, I mean, this contractor that I've been working with actually just did the one for Manchester Elementary.
Oh, okay.
And he actually went out there and looked at it and drew it up, and he said that, you know, the school prefers to use a certain brand of signs, which is Daktronics, which is what we're dealing with here, which is a little bit more expensive than some of the other options, but it's more reliable and will last longer.
What I appreciate about you is you bring the receipts. You did this before. You knew there was 2 other ones in the capital budget last year. I didn't know that, so that's great. That's fantastic. I mean, we weren't going to necessarily throw that up as an objection, but you were ready just in case.
Actually, like one of the schools that was approved by the state, they requested it was for $80,000, so it was even a lot more than our sign. The other one was a little bit less, but yeah.
That's great.
Sam.
So, next.
Yep. Principal, you.
No, you're fine.
Go next.
I'm stepping down, the new principal at Westminster Elementary School. As you know, the beginning of the school year is very hectic, and as a new principal, I was trying to get as much community outreach as possible. You know, popsicles with principals, the first PTO meeting, the school social, and I had to choose which ones to put on the sign because we didn't have enough room or enough letters. So it truly is something that would very much enhance communication with our families. This is our 50th year anniversary for those that like the trivia. And so I would love to begin the 51st year with a brand new sign for our community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate it. Did you guys have any questions? Public, does anybody have anything they want to comment on related to that? All right. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. And then we've got one more LBI, or one other organization that's on the agenda to request an LBI, and that is the Carroll County Youth Service Bureau.
Skipping Habitat for Humanity?
Yeah, they
Okay.
pulled out.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't want money.
Yeah, one of the other organizations decided not to move forward this year, if you saw that on the agenda, so go right ahead. Yep.
Hi, I'm Charlene Gomes. I'm here with the Carroll County Youth Service Bureau. I'm not sure if everybody got a copy of the one-pager I sent out.
I think we got it. I got it.
I have extra copies if anybody needs them. But for those of you who are not familiar, so CCYSB is a nonprofit organization. So despite our name as the Youth Service Bureau, we are not a government agency. We are a nonprofit organization. We provide behavioral health and substance use disorder treatment to people of all ages throughout the county, regardless of their ability to pay. In fiscal year 2025, we served 955 unique individuals through over 18,000 sessions. So we are here to ask for $500,000 for replacements of equipment in our current building. So our building was constructed in 2008. We have a lot of legacy systems that need to be replaced and upgraded at this point. These include our HVAC, roof, our water heater, and our security system. So I know it's a big ask, but we have a big job, and we are actively seeking matching money. As you know, we have also an overall building expansion project going on as well. And we are trying to make sure that we're not neglecting our current building in the process of focusing on new and shiny things. And given that we serve so much of the community, the safety and security of the folks that we serve is paramount. Some of you may also know that we've had one building flood. We think one building flood is enough. So we want to make sure that there aren't such disruptions to our services and no harm coming to our staff. So that's what I'm here to request, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I was actually surprised to learn a year ago or a couple years ago, that there's not very many YSBs in the state left.
Nope.
And I think
we're the biggest.
We get good outcomes in the county for troubled youth, but we obviously always want to do as the best we can, and appreciate the request, and we definitely take it very seriously. And the thing about LBIs is, as you know, and I think just for the crowd's benefit, even if we can't get the whole 500, maybe we get some, and sometimes you can take a couple bites at the apple if need be. So we'll want to work with some partners we know in Westminster City and others to work on lobbying down there as well. So we'll be in. I'm sure we'll be in touch. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
You have some?
Yeah, so it may be we can't get you everything you need this year, but we could get you maybe one piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible for you to get us a breakdown of the costs so we know?
Absolutely. We've been working on getting updated estimates, cost estimates. We have it for some of the equipment. With others, we're still working on getting those in hand, but I can certainly get to you what we have, and then
Yeah, get us what you have. My guess is we can't get you $500,000, but if the water heater costs a reasonable amount of money, we might be able to get you that.
Okay.
And maybe something else as well.
Absolutely. I know our facilities manager, his heart is set particularly on getting the security system replaced as soon as possible. But we'll get you those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think the security system and the water heater would be easier, say, than the HVAC.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
And to follow up on the senator's fantastic request, could you prioritize them potentially too, so we can break down the
Definitely.
priority and the costs?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Anybody from the public have anything they want to comment related to that? All right. We're going, since Senator West is here, we'll come back to the delegation chair election. So we're going to elect amongst the six of us.
Just so long as it's not me.
Well, we
voted before you got here.
So there's two senators, so we've narrowed it down to one now. Every county delegation is set up a little bit different, but the way we do it is we have a chair of both, a chair of the House and a chair of the Senate. So with the Senate, is there anybody you want to nominate?
I'd like to nominate Justin Reedy.
I'd like to nominate Chris West, but I know how this is going to go because I live in the county, so I have to be the Senate chair, and then we generally the House chair sort of runs the meetings and stuff. So
Do you need a second on that?
I don't know if we do. I don't even know how we do that. I guess it's going to be me again this year. So
Yeah.
Mr. West and I had a fist fight, and the fist fight was over who would have to be chair as opposed to who gets to be chair. But anyway, so, no. All good.
All right, you seconding that?
I guess I'm seconding in my own nomination. And two of us are in favor, so
We're in favor. All right, there we go. Congratulations. All right, now with the House is a little more controversial. There's four of us. Do we have any nominations?
I will move to renominate Mr. Tomlinson.
Second.
All right, got a first and a second.
I'll even third that one.
Oh, all right. All right, do we need to vote then?
Unanimous consent.
Yeah, by unanimous consent, I guess it is.
Yay.
All right, so
Your fearless leader.
I'm back again. All right, that was easy. And I can also tell you that other counties, and I don't care if it's a county where the entire delegation's in the same party, especially if it's a mixed party, their elections don't go quite as smooth as that one just did.
Heck, even the counties with just one person.
Yeah. Some counties only have one person. Okay. So, okay, with that, we will move on to now the public comment section of our agenda. Like I said, let's try to keep it roughly around 2 minutes. We would appreciate it. So I saw the first hand go up, so please head up to the microphone. We appreciate it.
I really appreciate that. My name is Ralph Robertson. I'm a local farmer, Carroll County. And I want to put you at ease a little bit. I'm not here asking for money. But I'm asking for some consideration. I've been involved in the agricultural land preservation program for many, many years. To just give you a little bit of a background, Carroll County was one of the first organizations of counties to respond to the legislation that came down in 1978 that started and initiated the program. Carroll County hit the road running, and This many years later, we now have 82,000 acres under easement. Now, those easements are made up of 3 different parts. There's the Maryland Ag Land Preservation Foundation. That's administered by the state. The state provides money, the county matches. There's a Rural Legacy program that came on a little bit later. You identify certain areas in the county that basically drain into waterways, eventually the Chesapeake Bay, Potomac River. We have 2 areas there. Been very successful in those areas. And then the county initiated its own program when the Maryland Ag Land Preservation Foundation became a little sketchy on its funding. So there were years where the state decided not to fund the program at all. Carroll County had a goal of 100,000 acres. The commissioner stepped up and provided funding so that the programs can continue. The reason I mention the 3 programs is because they are markedly different in some of the aspects of the programs. The one I want to talk about today hit me personally, but it's a statewide program, and I think if we could fix this problem, it would be a fix for the entire state. Not just for me, and not just for Carroll County. So, not to take a lot of time, I'd like to just give you a little background. I ran into the ill-fated bureaucracy that happens sometimes at the state level in interpretation of the easement documents. And it was as simple as this. Each easement document at the state level has the ability to take residual lots. And I'm talking about family lots, children's lots. We fixed that problem because in the Maryland Ag Land Preservation Foundation easement, there are 2.5 pages of this legal paper document that outlines what it takes to secure a child's lot or a family lot. In the Rural Legacy easement and in the county easements, it's 1 paragraph. And that is simply that X amount of lots are negotiated during the process of putting the farms, the land under easement with the families, with the landowners. And so it's in stone. We walk away, we don't have a problem. So here's what happened. In 2004, my wife and I have 1 daughter. And our farm has been in the family for over 100 years. So we have what I consider a legacy farm. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 100 years, but it's looking good so far. So in 2004, I wrote a letter to the state of Maryland, the Mouth Foundation, and I said, my intent is to give our 1 daughter the ability to take a child's lot. I got a response from the executive director at that time, James Conrad. And he said, and I have the letter here, he said basically that as long as a farm stays in the family, our daughter would have the ability to take that child's lot. When the farm was put under easement, for estate purposes and to protect my family, the older generation, the farm was in my name and my mother's name with a life estate. So about 1.5 years ago, and then in 2021, I verified that same request with the local officials upstairs. And they said, yes, that our daughter would have the ability to take a lot. So we started in redoing our estate planning, because as you see, I'm no young chicken. And time is not on our side in a lot of cases when you get to be 78 years old. So we wanted to redo our estate planning and put my wife's name on the deed with my name. My mother has been deceased for quite a few years. So something told me to reiterate the intent letter. When I called the MALF office, I was told that if I change the designations on the deed, I'm talking about our title deed for the farm, that Katie would no longer be eligible for the child's lot if I would die first and my wife inherited the property. Well, that didn't seem quite right, so I pursued it. I know enough about the easement program that I thought that there was a problem and a glitch in this document. All the years I worked in the program, we worked very hard there are certain entitlements that come with this deed of easement. You give up a certain amount of things to get a certain amount of things. There's a takeaway and a giving. And the child's lot part of it can get a little muddled. So here's what I was told, that because we had changed the title to the farm, that changed the terms of this easement. So when I looked into it, I said, this is an interpretation by a regulatory agency, which is what MALF is. MALF administers a program, but they're also a regulatory agency that makes decisions on things like this. So I had all the proof that I needed, that I was told that our daughter would be eligible for that lot as long as the farm stays in the family. And I got tremendous pushback until I called the agricultural department and got some really good people in Kevin Attick's office. And they told me that just because I pushed so hard on what I thought was right, that they would probably make an exception for our daughter if MALF and the Board of Trustees agreed with it. Well, that's okay for me, but that is not okay for the rest of the people that are part of this easement program. And I'm talking about statewide. So sometimes when you talk about millions and millions of dollars in all these other departments and everything, that's a big deal. But sometimes the smallest of things can be very egregious. And you could ask me, and I'll tell you, can we fix this without legislation? I was told by the executive director at MALF that it is what it is. So they would fight back the next person and the next person and the next person. But you have a document immediately when you sign that easement, everybody knows who your children are. So that doesn't change. So you can't just keep adding children and all that. It's there. It's there. So I think it's a problem. Mm-hmm. It might be a problem for one family. It could be a problem for 5, 10, 15. I don't know. But it's a problem, and I think it's incumbent on us to make things right and possibly make it better. That's what life's about, is to see things that are wrong and make them better. So I'm asking you to hear me out. We'll talk about this. I would love to see this fixed administratively. This stage of the game, I'm not sure we can do that. So then that leaves legislatively. And I can tell you about the alternatives that would make this program better. I don't know after all these years whether the MALF board and the Department of Agriculture would be open to anything like that. But I basically ran up against a stone wall. And the county here was helpless in trying to aid me in this for various reasons. Because the state rules today when you talk about the Maryland Ag Land Preservation Foundation easements. I've taken a lot more time than I intended, but I felt like you needed some background information, and I'd be glad to talk to you anytime about this.
Well, first of all, Mr. Robinson, thanks for coming here with your passion on this issue. This entire county is very much indebted to you for the work you've done. So to see you go through this is a great injustice for the service you've given this county. When the administrators said they were going to make this exception for you, was there any language in the law that they referenced that gave them to the authority to do so? Because that can be where we can focus in on revising.
Well, yes, and it's one clause that they dwelled on, and it says the grantor who originally sold this easement. So, as long as I'm alive, I can ask for a lot, go through all the machinations that it takes to get one. But if I would die, and that farm goes to my wife, then the pushback starts. It's still in the family. Our daughter would probably be the next generation on that farm to inherit the farm. We have one daughter.
So that's where we need to potentially focus in on modifying the language.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Does anybody else have a question? All right, thank you.
People are commenting.
Appreciate it. I think I saw someone, yeah.
Do us a favor and state the name again for the record. I know you were up once before, and you're welcome to be up again, but just so we make the note correct. Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Diana Bergman. I moved to Carroll County in July of 2024. One of the big reasons why my family came back, my husband retired, and to move to Carroll County was for the reputation of great schools in Carroll County. But today I'm speaking as a mother and as a first-generation immigrant, where I am really concerned every time I send my boys to school, because there's not clarification as far as the work happening currently in this state with ICE enforcement agents and our local police department to allow agents to go into our schoolhouses. School Board of Ed, I've been all day on a email back and forth with them to get clarification, because in the Maryland General Assembly last session, House Bill 1222, Public Safety Immigration Enforcement, Maryland Values Act, I had identified certain sites that were like sensitive sites that we weren't supposed to have ICE come into these sites, like schools and libraries. So why is it that our current Board of Ed is trying to draft policy to allow ICE agents to go into our schools? I don't feel comfortable with that as a parent. And we're talking about children here, young children. Whether they're in elementary, middle school, or high school, we're talking everybody's children. We can't just have like just random people that are masked, that don't identify themselves, coming into buildings, traumatizing other children. Okay, little Johnny and Susie could have friends that is like Stephanie and Juan Diego. And you know what? They don't want to see their classmates just being snatched out of class like that, so you could bait their parents. These are people in our community. These are our neighbors, okay, that have come here, have provided public service. They work hard. They go to our churches. They're human beings, and we're talking about their children being used as bait. So I want to know what you guys are going to do this upcoming session to make sure the language is clear, that we keep our schools and our libraries and places of worship safe, where we don't have immigration agents coming in. Because it's been documented so far. They have broken the law. They have snatched people off the street And they have denied human beings the right to due process. And that's not how we should be living here in the United States. Okay? I should have peace of mind when I send my boys to school, that they're gonna come back home safe and not be traumatized. So that's what I'm asking for you guys. This House bill that did end up passing, I didn't see a single one of your names on it. Okay? And that's very disappointing. And Senator West, I've known you for a long time, so if I'm up here talking, I expect for you to be paying attention, not looking at your phone, please.
Just a minute.
Okay.
Just a minute. We're listening. We're all taking notes, but we're not going to have anybody going back and forth. We're happy to answer questions, and we're here to listen. And everybody's getting an opportunity to speak. We don't want anybody calling anybody out one way or the other. So, thank you very
I do
much.
want to know what you guys plan to do to protect all children in Carroll County Public Schools.
So, just to be clear, the bill that I think you're referencing, the Maryland Values Act, it is preventing ICE from going into churches and schools.
They already
So I don't know why you're saying.
Because I have an employee from Carroll County Public Schools saying the opposite. His name is John O'Neill, and he's telling me the opposite. He's saying that that the Board of Ed wants to draft policy to have a procedure for ICE agents to come into the schoolhouses. That's why I'm here so upset about this and sharing this with you
All right.
guys.
Look into it.
I mean, there's definitely going to be legislation introduced. I don't think it's going to be from the six of us. It's already been made clear the Senate President is going to be putting in legislation that does probably everything you want to see happen. So keep an eye out for that legislation.
Senator West has a comment.
Senator West.
So while you were speaking, I was looking up the act that you referred to, and I can read to you the specific language of the act which was enacted last year. It says, a public school, a public library, or a unit of the executive branch of state or local government that operates at a sensitive location shall deny access to any portion of the sensitive location that is not accessible to the general public, to any individual who is seeking access for the purpose of enforcing federal immigration law, unless the individual presents a valid warrant issued by a federal court or exigent circumstances exist. I'm not sure what that last part means, but I'm not sure that they apply in the situation you're talking about. So that's what the law says that we passed last year.
And thank you for that, Senator. What's happening is there's a confusion among multiple jurisdictions. So Baltimore County Public Schools decided not to do anything about this whole controversy situation, but Carroll County, the Board of Ed, once again wants to introduce policy to have a procedure on how outsiders are entering and buzzed into the building. So it's gonna cause some conflict. Even your secretaries working that buzz people in, if they refuse to buzz them in, are they gonna be charged for not following federal law? So if we haven't changed our policy, how we identify people coming into our schoolhouses, why do we have to have a specific policy in place, which is what's currently being proposed at the Board of Ed?
Well, it's a state law. So because it's a state law, the regulations which would interpret the state law would be passed by a state agency. And I'm not sure a state agency has discerned the ambiguity in the law that you seem to feel is there. If there is such an ambiguity, then the state agency would have the ability to pass regulations which would define exactly what the law means.
I have your email. I'll send you an email so then you could see what I'm talking about, what Carroll County Public Schools Board of Education is proposing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Any of you can come up to the microphone next. It's gonna be the same thing.
My name is Natalie Sanchez. I'm here to talk about a couple of things. But first of all, I wanted to just offer some clarification to the previous speaker that in the proposed Board of Education policy related to ICE, there is a statement, if immigration officers proceed into a private space without exigent circumstances or a judicial warrant, the chief of school security shall document the incident but shall make no effort to resist or block the officers. So basically, I think the concern is that the policy is saying no one's going to stop them if they break the rules. So I think that's part of what was being talked about there. And I also don't agree with it, and most parents don't, I would venture to say. But I'm here to talk about a couple of things, really somewhat all related, but I wanted to talk about the allegations against Sheriff DeWeese, and I'd like to ask the Carroll delegation to make a statement related to that. So as I'm sure you've heard already, the Carroll County Times published 2 articles recently detailing Sheriff DeWeese's alleged misconduct. One story was about Heather DeWeese's divorce complaint, alleging that Sheriff DeWeese had affairs with local attorneys and attorneys employed at the Carroll County State's Attorney's Office, Maryland State Troopers staff, and Carroll County Sheriff's Office deputies and staff, and other candidates for elected office in Carroll County. The other story detailed the sheriff's office attempt to intimidate a local activist by going to his home and place of employment. While the community is not interested in politicians' personal lives, we do understand that these allegations are serious and credible and point to potential abuse of power and conflicts of interest. I think Carroll County residents' politics are varied, but I think most people would agree that we demand ethical behavior of our government officials and that accountability and transparency matter. For these reasons, we would like you to speak out on your support for Sheriff DeWeese being put on leave and an independent investigation be conducted to determine if he has engaged in conduct that amounted to abuse of power and if his actions negatively impacted the careers or well-being of subordinates or colleagues or interfered with the administration of justice in individual cases in the Carroll County court system, which could have happened if he had a personal relationship with someone who was trying a case against an individual in the court system. So these are serious allegations that I would ask that you make a statement on. Because they are so serious, I would also ask that you use your positions to pressure him to take leave while an investigation occurs. Along these lines, I'd also like to draw attention, the community's attention really, to what is going on in Carroll County in relation to immigration enforcement. I think many people saw on March 31st, a resident of our community was violently taken by an ICE officer. Her window was smashed in. She was taken while her daughter was videoing on the streets of Westminster. After this happened, Sheriff DeWeese had this to say. He said, "It's about time they came up and got her. She's no big loss to the community." This is a mother, a worker in our community who had no criminal record. Sheriff DeWeese asked us to just trust him. Oh, she's not a loss to the community. She's not a good person. Just trust me. Now suddenly, when he's got allegations against him, he thinks due process is important. So I'd like to point out that hypocriticalness and another reason why he is not fit to hold his office, if he only thinks due process is for him and his friends, but not for all residents of the community. I think this is something that you should speak out on if you believe in ethicalness in government. I'd also like to just point out to people what's going on in the county. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we have ICE agents roaming the United States. They're basically an unaccountable paramilitary force operating with impunity in our communities. Well, Sheriff DeWeese saw this and said, I want in on that. Let me sign an agreement so I can use Carroll County tax dollars to train sheriff's deputies, corrections center deputies to do the duties of an ICE officer. So that shows to me a clear lack of judgment. He's putting the community at risk. Any immigrant, any friend of an immigrant, any family member of an immigrant, anybody connected to an immigrant will not call the police if they're a victim of a crime or witness a crime. This makes our community less safe. It's also wasting Carroll County tax dollars. Again, we are training Carroll County Detention Center deputies to do the job of an ICE officer. ICE has an annual budget of $27 billion. They don't need our tax dollars to do their job. People might think that immigration enforcement isn't happening in Carroll County. I'm here to tell you it is happening. There have been people taken off the street, one example I just gave you. But even more importantly, there are people being disappeared from our detention center. So since Trump took office, and DeWeese has been collaborating, he's always been collaborating with ICE, but he signed a formal agreement in March to collaborate with ICE. But since Trump took office, there have been 22 people held on ICE detainers in the Carroll County Detention Center. This is from Freedom of Information Act information. The prior 6 years—
Ms. Sanchez, we do want to give some other people an
I do understand that, but you know, other people talked a lot longer than me, so I'd like to finish. I'm almost done.
I'm giving you a few second warning, please. Thank you.
In the prior 6 years, 43 people were held on ICE detainers. To let you know what an ICE detainer is, it's when someone is brought in on charges and then they discover that ICE wants them, and so the detention center holds them. So in 6 years, 43 people were held on these detainers. And then in the last 10 months, 22 people have been held. That is an indicator of racial profiling. They are pulling people into the detention center on charges because they think they look like immigrants, since apparently, according to our current presidential regime, there's a certain way that immigrants look, and they're allowed to racially profile them. And DeWeese is 100% in on this. So I want to bring this to the attention of the community, that this is happening right here. It is a danger to the people who live here. It makes us all less safe. And in addition to that, we have a sheriff who's acting unethically in multiple ways. So I think as your roles, you have a pulpit, you should use it to speak out on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go. Who we have in the back next?
Hello, my name is Venice Hernandez. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I believe this might be what you were speaking about, but I'm here today because I've reviewed the proposed policy of JIHA on immigration enforcement, and I'm here hoping to ask for some clarification to make sure this policy is implemented safely and consistently. This policy states that ICE may only access non-public school spaces with a judicial warrant under exigent circumstances. However, the definition of exigent circumstances in this policy is broader than what is typically used in case law or in the Attorney General's guidance. It includes general violence or harm to property, which could be interpreted very widely differently on a school-to-school basis. I'm hoping to get a better understanding of the section stating that the warrant requirement does not apply to compliance visits such as USCIS student visa checks, since those aren't conducted by ICE. I want to make sure that staff are trained to and can distinguish between the two, as they are different. Thank you so much for giving me the time to speak and considering what I have brought. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to come up next?
Hi, my name is Debbie Santini, and I'm a resident of Carroll County, and I'd like to address this issue here. As a mom who has lost her youngest son to fentanyl poisoning, if people are here illegally, they should be removed. Fentanyl has come through with the Mexican cartel over our borders that was open for 4 years. They have been allowed to come in and kill hundreds of thousands of Americans.
Ms. Santini, can you address us, please?
They have been allowed to kill hundreds of thousands of Americans, including my son and many families in this community alone. I support ICE when they're doing their job as they should. So if people are here legally, they should not have to worry. Other than...
Thank you. No, we're not going to have debate in the crowd. Not debate in the crowd. Thank you very much. Who'd like to come up next?
I'll change the subject. My name's Lou Enoff, and I'm here to represent myself. But I just encourage you all to continue to act the way you do and take the facts that are presented to you, not rumors. All people have opinions. I happen to agree with the last lady, but I just encourage you to listen and get your facts before you act. I want to know about the horse farm. Does anybody have information about the transfer of the state to the Horsemen's Association of the acreage in
Particularly the Shamrock Farm?
Shamrock Farm? Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Josh might have some.
The rumor is that the state did transfer
They did.
the deed. I haven't had any people on my property looking for stakes lately, so I assume something was settled. But the question is, does anybody know what the state's doing? And if I just want to encourage you, the state doesn't tell the county anything, and they don't have to apparently, except for one road that is a county road that abuts that property. The other, as I understand it, the other permits are all issued through the state. And so I just want to encourage you all, you're at the state. The governor is pretty quiet about what's going on there. We only learn about it after it happens. And I think it's worthy of you all trying to give it some attention to see what the plans are. I believe the Horsemen's Association has good intentions, but we know sometimes where the road to good intentions lead. And I think we ought to pay attention to what's happening and make sure that we get some information. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
I think we can just reach out to the Stadium Authority and see what they're willing to release, and if you want to get information, they can provide an update.
The Stadium Authority has released it, and they're happy. The man at the Stadium Authority told me, you know, all I had to do was wait until it was approved, and I'm out of it, and I'm glad.
Okay. Got it.
The Commissioner Mike Guerin, who represents that area, he was actually just talking to me on Sunday about this, because obviously with him representing that area, he's had a lot of folks in his community who are saying the same thing, and he wants to get, he's having trouble also getting answers, it sounds like, and so what he was working on and proposing was talking with us as a delegation and seeing maybe about doing a joint letter, not necessarily, you know, not saying we're opposed to the project, but just saying, hey, we've got concerns, and can you work with us to address them? Yeah, yep. So yeah, he just talked to me on Sunday about that. I think right now it's just an idea in his head, but you know, the pen hasn't hit the paper yet. But I think most of us would be open to asking for clarification and just to address some concerns that we would like for them to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Next person.
Carl.
He's got somebody waiting.
Evening. My name's Joshua Hyde. I'm here to ask a very explicit question, but for context for the audience, last year we had to scramble due to the lack of actions of our county leaders to try to get a waiver for the blueprint to prevent the firing of 92 teachers. That was an extremely disruptive thing that had to happen. 92 teachers were told they were going to get fired. They did get pulled into central office and essentially be told that this is it. And then we had to get together as a community. We had to fight the AIB. We had to send the 1,200 emails. I know that you guys were actively involved in all of that. And part of that is that the waiver was a one-year pause where we were going to have the opportunity to change the legislation. But I haven't heard anything coming out of your offices of what the changes are going to be to the blueprint to prevent this from coming back again next year, because we put all of our effort into trying to get this waiver. We only had the 1 year delay, and I'm not seeing any changes or any actions, and here we are in October, and we're still going to be looking down the pipe of having to struggle to find a way to pay for blueprint that we have known about for 6 years. And the inaction just has to stop. 1 minute and 15
Hey, great
seconds.
job. Thank you, sir. In response to that, one response I would make is that actually, just to be clear, the waiver is more than a year. It's actually basically functionally 3 years. But there's a lot that's been developing behind the scenes and in conversations where it looks like our county is actually in pretty good shape to meet a lot of the requirements with the help of the waiver, so that we're not going to have a dramatic spike of need to spend money over the next couple of years. But I'm speaking very much generalities. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on it, but Delegate Stonka, do you have any comment, or did you and I talked about this recently? I know.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the superintendent's office,
Right.
but where we are with some of the new underlying dynamic changes of the county, and just shifting there, I'm sure some of you saw that there's been change in enrollment, but also there's been change in enrollment in a geographical way as well. So what that means more specifically is the county is shifting in the Title I LMI space of the average student. So historically has been Tawnytown, around Robert Moton and Westminster, parts of Manchester and Hempstead downtown. That's shifted a little bit towards Sykesville. That is kind of curing, so to speak, some of the challenges. Additionally, the superintendent's office has been working with a group called the APA Consultants, which is a group that helped write the blueprint with Rachel Hayes, Ben Barnes, et cetera, in Annapolis a couple of years ago in the MSEA. They've been incredibly helpful. Again, I want to kind of honor where they're at. In February of next year, they'll come out with their formal update. What I would say right now is with the adjustments that they are laying out, I think we should be on let's call it a 50% waiver for year one. We should be at about 4 to 5% off of that. And the last update I had was that the transitional impact for teachers would be limited. I don't want to say completely null and void, but limited. And as this kind of progresses forward, one of the things that we just don't know, and I think it's a fair point, Josh, that you said, which is I expect very little movement from the state this year with the blueprint. It's an election year, and the governor's office is very committed to it as it currently stands. I think that probably changes in January of 27 after the election as priorities around many different stakeholders kind of pull forth. Again, I don't want to speak for any groups. I imagine the MSEA will have their focuses that they are very focused on. There'll be different stakeholders that are focused on Title I schools. So I think that the major changes will come in January 27. I think there's a couple things that are more likely than not. I won't play speculator here. But in the context of Carroll County, which Josh, I know that's what you're focused on right now, at least. I'm careful in that I'm not a member of the Board of Education, teacher in the school, a parent even yet at this point, or the superintendent. But based on the last update I had, the changes that the APA consultant has been able to get the AIB to agree to informally and ultimately will be formally over the next couple of months is that we should be on target to have relatively limited impact. I'm not going to say no impact because that would probably be a falsehood. But for example, and I will lay out some specifics. I know I'm going long here, but I know this is a top issue. The big issue that probably came out of it is something called a base school model, which I'm sure I know several of you have seen at Board of Ed meetings from abroad as I watch online and keep up to speed with these different things. The APA has a different definition of a base school model than Carroll County. What I would argue is the state law states. The APA is allowing some changes and recommendations, or let me put it this way. The APA, which is the Blueprint Board's partner and follows a lot of their guidance, or will listen to a lot of their guidance, has a different definition of what they think the base school model should be. So things like a media specialist should be required in a base school, right? So something that we know 7 of our schools were going to lose. I think it was 7. What the base school model might not mean is that the media specialist has a media aid, right? So kind of 2 different things, and it's just one small example. So as that base school model definition recalibrates towards January and the February update, I think there will be more certainty that's given by John O'Neill, by Cindy McCabe, around what this looks like on a go-forward basis. What I've seen behind the scenes, and I've been very tied into this, and we have folks in the room that could say that as well, and they've been great partners, is that we're well ahead of where I thought we would have even been in April when we got the blueprint because of the work with the APA consultants.
So just to clarify, we're not really looking at any legislative changes to the
I don't want to say no because the budget's $1.4 billion short than we thought. So what the governor and proposes is TBD. I think probably it'll be a lot more of the pauses that were laid out before. So collaborative time got informally paused or for a year or two. I think there's going to be some of these things that maybe kick in. The challenge right now is the way the blueprint was funded from the federal or from the state side to start was there were excess funds from gaming and from cannabis that were put into a blueprint special fund. That was essentially what happened is it got aggregated to over a course of a couple of years before Blueprint started. That fund exhausts, I think, this year, and then that moves to the general fund, and that's why you see these budget deficits that are kicking out as like 1.4, then 1, then 3, then 4, then 5 as it kicks in. Just because where the funding comes from is a different place, and that's decisions that will be made by the governor in consult with the legislature, in particular leaders of the legislature. I think we probably likely see a plugged hole this year, and then most of the changes will happen in 2027. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, and there's been, probably ever since Blueprint was passed, there's been legislation introduced year after year to try to change it. The governor tried to make some changes earlier this year, and then a very, I don't know what you want to call it, but interesting bill hearing. His staff got basically ripped apart from the same folks in his party. The reality is there's just no interest from the majority party to make any major changes to Blueprint at this moment.
I think the good news, I agree with that in the General Assembly, and I think the good news we've seen is, and Josh was pointing out well, one of the good news that we've seen is that many other counties have suddenly found out. It's like Carroll County was sort of the vanguard of, hey, this is going to, and to give credit to our school board and our superintendent, it's because we were actually trying to get ahead of the game and put money aside and do some things in advance and get into compliance quicker. But also protesting and saying, hey, because we're doing this, these bad things are going to happen. So now there's a lot of other counties around the state that are like, hey, wow, these bad things are happening to us. So, which is not, I'm not smiling that bad things are happening, but I'm saying it is starting to lead more of an effort with AIB and some of these other groups to hopefully see some positive changes, but it probably will not be until, as Delegate Stonka was saying, it's certainly not going to be. Sure. We're not going to see any widespread changes this year. We don't believe.
Is anybody else here? Oh, yeah.
I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Carl Munder, Town Council of the Town of Mount Airy. I'd just like to piggyback on the Shamrock Farm comment. As you all progress with the letter and reaching out to the Stadium Authority with questions and stuff, please include us in those discussions and/or letter. Reach out to me or the mayor of Mount Airy, since we are the closest municipality to this project of development of 300 acres. Development in that area of the county is a very contentious issue within the town, and we will be impacted by that as it develops or if it develops. So we just want to be aware of anything that's coming down the pike, both in Carroll County, Frederick County, Montgomery, and Howard. Because the development that's going to happen in Frederick in the Linganore area is going to impact us drastically. Mm-hmm. So we just want to be ahead of the game and make sure we're aware of it sooner rather than later. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else? Going once, going twice? Nobody? All right. Anybody have any final comments up here?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All right. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.